Let's start with the moment that turned a cultural war cry into a global symbol of rugby intimidation, the All Blacks Haka at the 1987 Rugby World Cup. Now the Haka wasn't new, it had been part of New Zealand rugby for decades, but this was the first time the world saw it on the biggest international stage. New Zealand hosted the tournament, and every time the All Blacks stepped onto the pitch, they performed it, not as a gimmick, but as a challenge, a ritual, a statement. It was led with intensity, eyes locked, bodies in sync, voices booming through packed stadiums. And for the first time, millions watching on TV across the globe realised this wasn't just rugby. This was something more. The 1987 team, led by David Kirk and coached by Brian Lochore, went on to dominate that tournament, winning every single match and lifting the trophy at Eden Park. But what stuck in people's minds wasn't just the scoreboard, it was the raw energy of that haka. It wasn't just theatre, it was psychological warfare. Opponents froze, audiences watched in awe, and from that moment the haka became rugby's most iconic pre-game ritual. It wasn't just New Zealand's identity, it became a part of the sport's global culture. You've probably seen the clip 100 times. Jonah Lomu steamrolling over Mike Catt like a tank crushing a cone. But to understand why this moment is so iconic, you need to go back to what Lomu represented in 1995. He was only 20. He'd just come into the All Blacks squad, and no one in the Northern Hemisphere had ever seen anything like him. 6 feet, 5 inches, 120 kilograms, sprinting like a winger and hitting like a flanker. In the semi-final against England, he scored 4 tries. 4. But it was that first try, the one where he ran through the entire English defence like they weren't even there, that became the stuff of legend. He receives the ball on the left wing. First defender, gone. Second, can't catch him. Then comes Mike Catt. Lomu doesn't sidestep him. He just runs straight through him, steamrolls him. Catt goes flying. Try time. It wasn't just a highlight, it was a wake-up call for the rugby world. The game was evolving. Lomu was the first global rugby superstar. He didn't just win games, he changed how teams scouted, trained and defended. And even though New Zealand lost the final, Lomu's performance was what people remembered. He wasn't just a player, he was a phenomenon. You cannot talk about iconic rugby moments without going straight to South Africa, 1995. This wasn't just a game, it was politics, it was history, it was reconciliation in motion. Apartheid had just ended. South Africa was hosting the Rugby World Cup, a nation still raw and deeply divided. Rugby had long been seen as a white man's sport in the country, and many in the black community didn't support the Springboks. But Nelson Mandela had a vision. He saw the World Cup as a chance to unify the country, so he supported the Springboks, even when it wasn't politically popular. He visited their training camp, he wore the green jersey, and on the day of the final, there he was, stepping out onto the pitch at Ellis Park wearing Springbok number 6, the jersey of Captain Francois Pienaar. It was a moment of pure symbolism. The crowd, mostly white, chanted, "Nelson, Nelson," as he shook Pienaar's hand before kick-off. The game itself was a battle. South Africa versus New Zealand. Jonah Lomu was unstoppable that tournament, but the Springboks held firm. Joel Stransky's drop goal in extra time sealed the win. But the most powerful image wasn't the trophy lift. It was Mandela and Pienaar standing side by side, smiling, united. That one moment, one man in a jersey did more than any political speech could have done. It didn't fix everything, but it showed what was possible. It's one of the most ice-cold, clinical moments in rugby history. 2003, World Cup final. England versus Australia, Sydney. The game is tied. We're deep into extra time. Both teams are exhausted. The atmosphere is tense, thick with history. And then, Jonny Wilkinson steps up. The ball comes out of the ruck, right to him. It's on his weaker foot, his right. He barely hesitates. One step, drop, kick, straight through the posts. There's a half-second silence before the eruption. England has won their first, and still only Rugby World Cup, in Australia, against the Wallabies, in extra time. Thanks to one man's composure under insane pressure. It wasn't just the skill, it was the moment. Wilkinson had trained obsessively for that scenario. Hundreds of kicks every day, from every angle, under every condition. And when it mattered most, he didn't blink. That drop goal became the defining moment of English rugby. It put England on the global rugby map in a way they had never been before. And Wilkinson? He became a national hero overnight. You know how every World Cup has a moment that just flips the tournament on its head? In 2015, that moment came in Brighton, and it wasn't just an upset, it was a rugby miracle. Japan versus South Africa. On paper, this was a mismatch. Japan hadn't won a World Cup match in 24 years. South Africa were two-time world champions. No one, even die-hard Japan fans, expected what happened next. But Japan didn't just play, they believed. They matched the Springboks for intensity, for fitness, for heart. Every tackle, every ruck, every pass, they were there. With 5 minutes left, it was tied. Then South Africa kicked a penalty to go ahead. And Japan, they had a choice. Take the draw with a kick or go for the win. They went for it. In the 84th minute, 4 minutes into stoppage time, Japan had a scrum 5 metres out. The ball came wide. It reached Kana Hesketh on the wing. He dove into the corner. Try. Japan 34, South Africa 32. The stadium erupted. Players dropped to their knees. South African players were in shock. It wasn't just the greatest upset in rugby history, it was one of the greatest in all of sport. And the impact? Massive. Japan's rugby exploded in popularity. That one win changed the way Tier 2 nations were viewed. It proved that anything is possible on the world stage. France is one of those teams. You never know which version is going to show up. But when they catch fire, they are unstoppable. And in 1999 at Twickenham, they burned the All Blacks. New Zealand was the clear favourite. Jonah Lomu was still in his prime. He scored 2 tries early on and gave the Kiwis a 24-10 lead. It looked over. France was on the ropes. But then came Christophe Lamaison. The man ran the show like a conductor. 2 drop goals, 2 penalties. Suddenly it's 24-22. France is alive. Then it just exploded. Tries from Dominici, Dorte and Bernard Salles. The French backs were everywhere. Offloads, chips over the top, step after step. The All Blacks couldn't keep up. Final score, France 43, New Zealand 31. New Zealand didn't lose finals back then, certainly not like that. But this wasn't just a loss, it was a complete collapse. That match became the blueprint of unpredictable genius. France reminded everyone that in rugby, no lead is safe. And even the most dominant team in the world can be torn apart in 20 minutes of fury. If you want to understand how far the sport has come, you've got to go all the way back to rugby school in Warwickshire, England. That's where it all started. There's a popular legend, William Webb Ellis picking up the ball and running with it in 1823. The truth is, it's more myth than fact. But what is real is that by 1845, the students of rugby school wrote down the first official rules of the game. Back then, it wasn't clean, it was brutal. No referees, no offside laws. You could literally hold onto someone's shirt to stop them from moving, and everyone just played in one massive scrum until someone broke free. But those written rules spread, first to other schools, then to clubs. By the late 19th century, rugby had divided into union and league, and by 1883 there was the first Home Nations Championship, what we now know as the Six Nations. It's wild to think that a game invented by schoolboys, full of chaos and mud, evolved into the global professional sport we know today. This one wasn't heroic, it wasn't inspiring, it was shameful, but it's iconic because it forced rugby to confront something it usually prides itself on: integrity. It was the 2009 Heineken Cup quarter-final between Harlequins and Leinster. Tight match. Late in the game, Harlequins wanted to bring their specialist kicker, Nick Evans, back on the field, but they had already used up their substitution options, except for blood injuries. So, Tom Williams faked a blood injury. Not a knock, not a scrape. A full fake blood capsule was hidden in his mouth. He bit down. The red stuff spilled. Trainers rushed in. Evans came back on. It didn't work. Harlequins still lost. But what came next was worse. An investigation followed. It was revealed that this wasn't the first time they'd done it. The club's director of rugby, Dean Richards was banned for 3 years. Williams got a 12-month ban. The scandal rocked European rugby. It forced a complete rethink on how substitutions were handled, stricter medical rules, harsher punishments, and a deep look into how far teams were willing to go to win. Bloodgate wasn't just a scandal, it was a turning point. A reminder that even in a sport built on honour, pressure can lead to desperate decisions. This was more than just a gold medal. For Fiji, it was a national breakthrough. A statement that pure talent, even from the smallest nations, can shine on the biggest stages. When Rugby Sevens was introduced to the Olympics in 2016, there was excitement, but also uncertainty. Traditional rugby powers like New Zealand, Australia, and Great Britain were expected to dominate, but Fiji? They had been masters of sevens for years. Fast, fearless, and fluid. This was their format. By the time Fiji reached the final in Rio, they had already put the world on notice. Their speed, their passing, their offload game, it was unmatched. And in the final, they faced Great Britain. It wasn't close. From the first whistle, Fiji controlled everything. Every pass was precise. Every break was electric. Their captain, Osia Kolinisau, led with composure. Jerry Tuai and Joshua Tuisova carved through defences. By half-time, it was 29-0. Final score, 43-7. It wasn't just domination, it was artistry. The entire squad played like one unit, almost telepathically connected. And when the whistle blew, the celebration hit hard. Players dropped to their knees in tears. The entire nation of Fiji erupted. That gold medal? It was Fiji's first ever Olympic medal in any sport, ever. In that moment, rugby wasn't just a game, it was national pride, validation and identity all rolled into one. When you talk about leadership in rugby, Richie McCaw's name always comes up first, and for good reason. By the time the 2015 Rugby World Cup came around, McCaw had already won almost everything, but this final chapter was different. It was legacy defining. New Zealand came into the tournament as defending champions. Pressure was sky high, but under McCaw's leadership they stayed focused. He wasn't the flashiest player. He didn't chase headlines. What he did was grind. Every ruck, every breakdown, every tackle, he was there, leading by example. And when New Zealand reached the final against Australia at Twickenham, it was clear what was on the line. A chance to become the first team to win back-to-back World Cups. A chance for McCaw to finish his career at the absolute peak. The All Blacks delivered. Tries from Milner Scudder, Nonu and Barrett. Dan Carter controlled the game with his boot. But throughout it all, McCaw kept it steady. Calm, composed, relentless. Final score, 34-17. As he lifted the Webb Ellis Cup one final time, you could see it in his face. This was it. 148 caps, 2 World Cups, a decade of dominance. He walked off without fanfare, just like he played, but the impact he left on New Zealand rugby? Massive. Richie McCaw redefined what it meant to be a captain in the modern era. Tactical, disciplined, humble, and almost impossible to beat. So there you have it, every iconic moment that shaped rugby into what it is today. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.